Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to talk about something that shows up in almost every long-term relationship, something subtle. Something slow, something that quietly creeps into a marriage until one day, one or both partners realize. We live together every day, but we've stopped truly listening to each other. If you're married, if you're in a long-term relationship, or even if you're preparing for marriage, this is a conversation worth having. And I'm speaking today not only as a relationship expert, but as someone who has sat across from hundreds of American couples saying the exact same sentence. We talk, but we don't feel heard. So in today's vlog, we're going to break down, deeply and clearly, 5 key psychological reasons why married couples, over time, slowly stop listening to each other. These reasons are backed by relationship researchers, therapists, clinical psychologists, and decades of studies on communication. I'll also share real examples, emotional dynamics, and how these patterns show up in everyday American marriages. Let's dive in. 1. Closeness communication bias. When familiarity makes us stop paying attention. One of the first reasons couples stop listening is something psychologists call the closeness communication bias. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. The closer we are to someone, the more we assume we already know what they're trying to say. And because of that assumption, we stop listening carefully. When you first meet someone, you pay attention to every word, every detail, every expression. But 5, 10, or 15 years into a marriage, your brain goes on autopilot, just like driving the same route to work every day and not noticing the scenery anymore. This shows up in comments like, "Yeah, I already know what you're going to say. You always talk about this. I've heard this before." Even research shows that spouses sometimes communicate no better than strangers because they stop taking each other's perspectives seriously. That's how important messages get missed, and emotional distance starts to form. Listen to this story and wonder if you have ever done the same? Tom and Lisa, a couple from Colorado, had been married for 12 years. One evening, Lisa walked into the kitchen and said, "Today was rough. Something happened at work." Tom didn't look up from chopping vegetables. He nodded casually and replied, "Yeah, your boss probably dumped more stuff on you again, right?" Lisa paused. That wasn't what happened. But Tom had heard her complain about work many times before, so his brain filled in the rest automatically. Lisa tried again. "No, something else." But Tom continued preparing dinner, half listening, and said, "Let me guess, another annoying meeting?" At that point, Lisa went quiet. The truth was this. Lisa had just found out her team was being restructured, and her position might be eliminated. She was scared, anxious, and needing emotional connection. But Tom, assuming he already knew the story, never asked a follow-up question. He never turned toward her. He didn't even notice the tremble in her voice. Later that night, when he finally learned the truth, he realized he had missed one of the most important conversations of their year, simply because he thought he knew what she was going to say. This is closeness communication bias in real life. Familiarity blinding us to new information. Assumption replacing curiosity. Expert insight. This moment illustrates how long-term partners often auto-complete each other's sentences in their minds. Tom wasn't dismissing Lisa, he was relying on patterns from past interactions. But relationships change every day, and emotional cues shift constantly. When familiarity takes over, people stop listening for updates, the new feelings, new fears, new needs that weren't present before. This blind spot is one of the top reasons American couples wake up one day feeling disconnected. They stopped hearing the new story because they assumed the old one. So slow down and listen like you're hearing your partner for the first time. Ask questions. Don't guess the ending of their story. Even people we love deeply need to feel rediscovered from time to time. 2. Emotional flooding and stonewalling, when one partner shuts down as self-protection. The second reason couples stop listening is emotional flooding, followed by stonewalling. This happens when conversations get too overwhelming, too emotional, too intense, and one partner's body goes into survival mode. Their heart rate spikes. Their breathing changes. Muscles tense up. And the brain says, "This is too much, shut down." That's when stonewalling happens. Withdrawal. Silence. One-word answers. Breaking eye contact. Not because they don't care, but because their nervous system is overloaded. The other partner, still emotionally charged, sees this as, "You don't care. You're ignoring me. You're done with the conversation." But often, that's not the truth. Now I will tell you a story. Daniel and Megan, a couple from Ohio, had a familiar pattern every time they talked about parenting. One afternoon, they were driving home from picking up their kids. The car was quiet. The kids were in the back listening to music. And Megan suddenly brought up something that had been bothering her. "Daniel, I really need you to be more involved with the kids' homework. I feel like I'm doing everything alone." Her tone wasn't harsh, just tired. But for Daniel, this topic was incredibly sensitive. He grew up in a home where any criticism felt like personal failure. So the moment Megan mentioned not helping enough, something inside him tightened. He gripped the steering wheel. His breathing changed. Pressure built in his chest. Megan continued, "I'm not attacking you, I just really need support. I feel overwhelmed." But Daniel couldn't hear her anymore. His body went into shutdown mode. He stared straight ahead. Gave one-word answers. "Okay. Sure. Fine." His silence made Megan feel invisible. She finally said, with frustration, "I can't even talk to you without you shutting down." But Daniel wasn't trying to punish her. He wasn't ignoring her. He wasn't checked out. He was overwhelmed, emotionally flooding, right there in the middle of a normal car ride. He didn't recover until hours later, when his body finally calmed down. And by then, the conversation, and the connection, was already lost. This story is a real example of how emotional flooding works. A vulnerable topic is raised. The partner feels criticized or pressured. Their nervous system interprets it as danger. They shut down to protect themselves. Stonewalling is almost never a choice. It is an automatic physiological reaction, a survival response. But to the other partner, it feels like rejection, avoidance, or emotional coldness. This misunderstanding is what slowly damages trust and communication in long-term couples. So recognize shutdown moments early. When one partner becomes quiet, frozen, or distant, pause the conversation. Say something like, "I think we're both overwhelmed right now. Let's take a break and come back to this when we're calmer." Emotional safety must come before problem solving. 3. The demand-withdraw pattern. One pursues. The other retreats. The third pattern is one of the most destructive, the demand-withdraw cycle. One partner becomes the demander, seeking answers, connection, or change. The other becomes the withdrawer, shutting down, avoiding, escaping. The more one pushes, the more the other pulls away. The more the other pulls away, the harder the first pushes. Both partners feel unheard. Both feel misunderstood. Both believe they're acting correctly. But the cycle becomes emotionally draining. Next is an illustrative story. Alex and Jenna from Phoenix had been married for 8 years. One evening, Jenna walked into the laundry room, frustrated after a long day juggling work, dinner, and getting the kids ready for bed. She saw a pile of unfolded laundry sitting in the basket. She sighed deeply and said, half tired, half irritated, "Alex, can you please help me more around the house? I can't do all of this by myself." Her voice wasn't yelling, just worn out. But for Alex, the tone hit a sensitive place. He felt attacked. He felt like he was being told he wasn't doing enough. And instead of responding, he did what he always did. He got quiet. He looked at the floor. His shoulders dropped. He whispered, "I'm tired too." Jenna, now more frustrated, stepped closer and continued, "I know you're tired, I am too, but I need help. Why'd I always have to ask? Can you not see everything I'm juggling?" The more she pressed, the smaller Alex felt. He grabbed his phone, pretended to check something, backed out of the laundry room and said, "Not now, I don't want to argue." Jenna felt rejected. To her, it looked like Alex was avoiding responsibility. Like he didn't care. But Alex wasn't running from her. He was running from the feeling of being criticized. Jenna demanded connection. Alex withdrew for protection. And neither of them felt heard. It wasn't the laundry. It wasn't the chores. It was the cycle. The more she needed answers, the more he retreated. The more he retreated, the more she pushed. Think about it for a moment and you will see. This is one of the most common patterns I see in American couples. The demander is usually seeking connection, clarity, or support. The withdrawer is usually trying to prevent conflict or emotional overwhelm. But the intent gets misunderstood. The demander feels ignored. The withdrawer feels attacked. And the cycle becomes self-reinforcing, happening in arguments, chores, finances, parenting, intimacy, everywhere. The issue isn't who's right or wrong. The issue is that both people are operating from fear, not from understanding. So when the cycle begins, name it. I think we're slipping into that pattern again. This simple awareness slows everything down, prevents escalation, and turns the moment from confrontation into teamwork. 4. Complacency. When life gets busy and partners start taking each other for granted. In the US, everyday life feels like a constant marathon. Work, family, kids, bills, obligations. Over time, couples slip into autopilot. Not intentionally, just gradually. They stop showing appreciation. Stop checking in. Stop noticing each other's feelings. Presence gets replaced by routine. One partner talks about their day. The other scrolls their phone. One shares something vulnerable. The other responds with, "Aha." The relationship isn't dying. But it's slowly losing oxygen. Real-life American story, the dinner table disconnect. Chris and Amanda from Denver had been married for 10 years. Both worked full-time, both were tired by the end of the day, and both kept telling themselves, "We'll talk later when things calm down." But later never came. One evening, they sat down for a simple dinner, grilled chicken, broccoli, and some leftover pasta. Amanda tried to start a normal conversation. "Today was kind of crazy at work. The company announced some changes." Chris didn't look up. He was reading emails on his phone. He said, without thinking, Yeah, that's tough." Amanda continued, "They might move my whole team to a different department." Chris responded again, "Okay, yeah, makes sense." But he had no idea what she just said. After dinner, Amanda cleaned the kitchen while Chris went straight to the couch and turned on an NBA game. During a commercial break he asked, "Do we have any more of that ice cream?" Amanda stared at him. Not angry. Not emotional. Just disappointed. Because in her mind she was thinking, "You didn't hear a single word I said earlier." The next morning, Chris asked casually, "Hey, what was that thing you mentioned about work yesterday?" Amanda didn't even bother answering. She just said, "It's fine, don't worry about it." Not because the problem was solved, but because she had stopped expecting him to listen. Nothing dramatic happened. No yelling. No big fight. Just a husband and wife, sharing the same dinner table, living the same life, yet slowly stopping being present for each other. That's complacency. Not distance. Just the quiet erosion of attention. This is one of the most common patterns in U.S. marriages. Physical presence without emotional presence. Chris thought he was listening. He heard sounds, not meaning. Because in long-term relationships, routine creates the illusion of connection. We eat together. We live together. We talk every day. But none of that guarantees true engagement. When partners get used to each other, micro moments of connection disappear, not because they stop loving each other, but because they stop noticing each other. So if you eat together, put the phone away. If your partner speaks, look up for 30 seconds. If they share something important, follow up later. Connection doesn't require hours, just genuine moments. 5. Negative sentiment override. When past hurts shape today's conversations. One of the most painful patterns is called negative sentiment override. This is when past conflict, old wounds, or unresolved hurt shape how partners interpret even neutral comments. Neutral questions can feel like criticism. Simple reminders feel like blame. Even kind words feel suspicious. Why? Because the brain is preparing for conflict, even when there isn't any. Couples begin responding not to the words, but to the emotional history behind them. An illustrative story. Tony and Rachel from Denver argued frequently over tiny things. One night, Tony asked gently, "Did you start the dishwasher?" To him, it was a neutral question. To Rachel, it triggered past hurt. She snapped. "Why, do you think I forgot? Do you think I can't handle anything?" Tony was stunned. Rachel wasn't reacting to this moment. She was reacting to years of criticism from a previous relationship, a wound she hadn't fully healed. Her nervous system heard blame where none existed. Expert insight. Negative sentiment override is powerful because it distorts present reality. Partners interpret neutral behavior through the lens of old emotional pain. If left unaddressed, it can turn everyday conversations into emotional landmines. Lessons we can learn. When you feel triggered, pause and ask yourself, am I reacting to what's happening now or to something from before? This awareness brings clarity and prevents unnecessary conflict. Conclusion. How long-term couples can relearn to listen. Couples don't stop listening because they stop caring. They stop listening because psychological patterns, habits, biases, stress, emotional wounds, slowly reshape how they hear each other. The good news? Every one of these patterns can be reversed. With intentional effort. Practicing active listening. Taking pauses during conflict. Showing appreciation. Checking assumptions. Giving the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes working with a professional. Couples can relearn to truly hear each other again. Listening isn't a skill you learn once. It's a relationship practice you return to every day. If you're watching this and thinking, that sounds like us. Remember, awareness is the first step. Once you see the pattern, you can start changing it. Thank you for watching. If this conversation helped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. See you in the next video.